Device family. So today we are here to learn how to make the Amahle by Inaliti Design. Now this was my very first bag that I ever made. So she's a little worn, she's a little dirty, but I've definitely used her a lot. You can kind of see her there. She does convert. She's a convertible bag. So you can convert her by carrying by the handle. You can put her into backpack mode by adding the straps to that square ring at the top and then attaching to the D-rings at the bottom. Or you can attach your strap here to the D-rings that are on the sides and carry it as a long strap, a crossbody, or as a shoulder bag. She, on the inside, so there's an option to do a turn lock, a tongue lock, or a magnetic snap. So on the inside here, very clever design. She has a little zipper pocket here for some coins or some money. On the inside of this here, she's got card slots. You can hold lots of cards here. I have put, I don't even know, probably 2 or 3 cards per slot here. So that's wonderful. It's got plenty of room for lots of card slots. On the back here, she has a very large zipper pocket on the back that goes the full width of the back side. And then on the inside, she's pretty roomy on the inside. She does have 2 slip pockets here on the back. I'll kind of flip this out so you can see it a little bit better. So 2 slip pockets here on the inside. This is without a doubt my favorite convertible bag, mainly because it's the right size for me. I know probably on camera she looks a little small, but she's actually not that small. Lots of room in here to put all of your essentials. You can make an additional wallet like I did. So this is the small espage that I made to go with this bag. So you could make an additional wallet to go with it if the card slots aren't enough in the front. But she's got plenty of room on the inside that you could even keep a little pouch in there, your phone, an additional wallet, and all of your essentials that you may need. I absolutely love the Amahle. It is one of my favorite bags. Lots of different ways that you can customize this bag. You can choose not to have anything here on the front. You can have it just plain. You can choose not to have anything here on the back. You can have it just plain. And the way that you would do that is you would cut your lining piece L as your back piece, so as an exterior piece instead of a lining piece. Or if you wanted your front and your back to be plain, you would just cut 2 additional pieces of piece L. I do have a video out there on how you can make the Amahle in clear. It was a Facebook Live that I did, but you can go and check that out if you want to see how to make her in clear. Very cute, very wonderful. If you decide that you don't want to do 3/4 inch hardware, you can change that and do 1 inch hardware. And you can do a 1 inch wide strap rather than a 3/4 inch strap. So lots of different ways that you can customize this bag, lots of different ways that you can sew it, things that you can take away, you can add to it. On the inside lining where the on the opposite side of the slip pocket, you could add another zipper pocket there if you would like. Lots of different ways that you can customize this bag. Absolutely my favorite convertible bag out there. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so you should have all of your pieces cut, interfaced, stabilized, and ready to go. One other piece that you should have ready to go that's part of your prep is folding your card slots per the pattern instructions. So the very first thing that we're going to do with our card slots is that we're going to top stitch along the top edge of all of our card slot tops. So all three of these. After we do that, we're going to sew a line from the center all the way down. Then we're going to base stitch our edges in place. After we base stitch our edges in place, we're going to take piece O, and we want top side, make sure that your top is marked. We're going to lay piece O right sides together with our card slots, with that top being at the top so that you'll know which side is your seam allowance. We'll sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn this out, and top stitch along piece O on the side here. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we should now have our credit card slots sewn with our center line down the center. We should have piece O attached to the side of our credit card slots with it top stitched. And one thing I forgot to mention when telling you to add piece O, you want to make sure that you're adding the straight side of piece O. So if you kind of look at piece O here, it's a little bit more narrow at the top than it is at the bottom. So this here is your slanted side, and this here is your straight side. So make sure that you're adding the straight side to the side of the card slots. So go ahead and set this piece to the side. You want to pull out piece K. And for piece K, you should already have the zipper pocket hole cut for piece K if you're using vinyl. If you're not using vinyl, then you'll want to refer to the pattern at the back that shows how to do this this slip or this zipper pocket here using fabric. But I'm using vinyl, so I went ahead and cut my hole out. You'll also need to pull out your 6.5 inch zipper, a zipper pull, and your smallest zipper pouch, or it's also referred to as the coin pouch. You'll want to go ahead and add your zipper to your coin pouch, wrong side of zipper to right side of zipper pocket, and centered. You'll go ahead and base stitch this in place, turn it around to the opposite side, add your zipper pocket again centered, and base stitch that side in place. Okay, so I now have my zipper pocket base stitched to my zipper pocket. So now we need to add this zipper pocket to piece K. So go ahead and take off one piece of your double-sided sticky tape and center this pocket. So what I do is I just use the numbering on my table here to then center that with my panel. So just like this. So now what we'll want to do is we'll want to flip this zipper pocket up to where it's nice and flat and out of the way. And we want to top stitch from one end all the way to the other end on the bottom only, starting and stopping about 1/8 of an inch from either side. Okay, so now we should have our top stitching here on the bottom. We want to fold our zipper pocket down all the way. And now we want to start where we stopped sew up the side, across the top, and back down the other side. When you do this, you want to make sure that you start and stop in the hole where you started. Okay, so now our zipper should be top stitched on all four sides. That's what it looks like on the back. So now we just want to close up the holes or the side parts of our zipper pocket. Don't trim any of this overhanging away, just leave it the way that it is, and we'll deal with that in another step. Okay, so now we should have our zipper pocket closed up on the sides and ready to go. Like I said, don't trim this bottom part. We're going to leave it the way that it is, and we'll end up moving it out of the way to sew this bottom portion. So for right now, we're just going to set this piece to the side. You'll need to, we're in section 3, and we're going to start creating our gussets, so you'll need piece M and piece N. And on both of these, we'll start with piece M. But on both of these, you'll need to mark your tops and take note that the straight side is going to be your zipper side. So you should have 4 piece M's, 2 that are on the mirror. So we're going to take and match up 2 of those. So just like this, these 2 here. So you can see they're 2 different mirrored ones. And we're going to sew the top edge, the slanted edge, and the bottom edge only at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trim our corners back on both of our corners, turn it inside out, and top stitch. So you'll do that for both piece M. On piece N, basically the same thing. You'll want to mark your tops. Take note that the straight edge is for the zipper side. You're going to match up 2 of these. And same as piece M, we're going to sew the top, the slanted edge, and across the bottom on both pieces. Trim your seam allowances back, turn these right side out, and top stitch them. Okay, so we should now have M and N sewn together, turned right side out. Hopefully you saw my note about not top stitching. I do apologize for that. One way that you can tell which is M and which is N after they've been sewn is that M is smaller than N. The other way that you can tell your top from your bottom, or excuse me, your top from your bottom, is your bottom is more narrow than your top. So if we kind of look at this one here, so my bottom is more narrow than my top. Your top is going to be the larger part. After you've sewn these, you've turned them right side out, and you really get those corners nice and pushed out, you do want to go ahead and base stitch this straight edge here and find your centers on piece M and piece N. Go ahead and set piece N to the side for right now. We want to work with just piece M. Pull out piece R. You do want to mark which side is your top for piece R. So mark your top for piece R, and go ahead and mark your centers on all 4 edges of piece R. With piece R laying up on your sewing bed with the top to the top, we want to take piece M, again, our top piece here, so that our top here, our straight edge, raw edge to piece R centered. Just clip that in place. Now you have a choice here. You can go ahead and base this in place if you would like, or you can just use the clips to hold them, and do that with the other side. So again, our larger side is our top side. Go ahead and center that up and clip it in place. So just like this. So you can see my piece M there. So go ahead and base this in place. If you're not going to base it, you can use the clips to just hold it the way that it is. You want to go ahead and pull out your 2 7.5 inch zippers. You want to turn one side of those down by 90 degrees on both of your zippers. Okay. So after you have your sides basted in place or clipped, we're going to lay our zipper wrong side of zipper to right side of piece M, and we're going to match up our teeth with the top part of piece M. Okay, so here's piece M here, and there's my teeth lined right up with piece M, and clip that in place. Okay, so just like this. So here's the right side of piece R, our piece M with the top to the top of piece R, wrong side of zipper to right side of piece M, pinned in place. Now go ahead and base stitch all of this in place on either side. Okay, so piece R should look like this right now. So this is the interior part of piece R, piece M, and then our zipper basted in place on top of piece M. For the moment, just set this to the side. We're still going to need it, but just set it to the side. Pull out piece R, your exterior part of piece R, and again, that should be marked with the top as well. Because I'm using a magnetic snap, I'm going to use the placement for a magnetic snap. But if you're using a turn lock or a tongue lock, then you'll want to use the placement for a tongue lock. I'm just going to lay my pattern down, top of my pattern to the top of my piece, and put a mark there. I'm going to take the metal backing of my magnetic snap so that I can mark the placement of this. Next, you'll need an X-Acto knife or some type of sharp knife that you can cut the holes for this. Just be careful, you don't want to cut them too big. Can always go bigger, but you can never go smaller. So now we want to place the female side, the female side of your magnetic snap into those slots that you just made. Add your metal backing. And then on top of that, I like to add a little bit of stabilizer to it, just to hold it in place and give it a little bit of stability. Now, personally, I like to push my prongs going inward rather than outward. I think that's a preferential thing. It just depends on how you feel about it. And then really push those down. You can also take a mallet to your cutting mat and push this down even further. So just like this. So you can see using that mallet, it makes it really nice and flat there. You may want to take a piece of tape and cover this up. Because I'm using such a thick canvas on this bag, I'm not going to worry about covering this up. I think it's going to be just fine. So you'll, again, want to find the centers of all four sides of piece R for your exterior, or at most your top and your bottom center. Maybe not necessarily the sides, but definitely the tops and the bottom. Okay. So now we're going to pull back out our interior part of piece R. We're going to lay our exterior right sides together with our right side of our interior. We're going to clip this in place, all three sides. So our top and our sides. Don't clip the bottom, you really don't need to. But at least your side, your top, and your other side. We're going to sew this now up the side at 1/4 of an inch, across the top at 3/8 of an inch, and back down the other side at 1/4 of an inch. So on your zipper side, you want to do 1/4 of an inch. At the top, you want to do 3/8 inch. So what I do is I always sew my 3/8 inch at the top first, and then I'll come back and I'll sew my 1/4 inch on the sides. After you do that, you'll want to clip your corners, but make sure you're not clipping your zipper teeth. So clip both corners off just to kind of cut down on that bulk. Turn this right side out, and then we'll be ready for our next step. Okay, so you should now have piece R attached and turned right side out. So now we'll need to top stitch all 4 sides. When you top stitch all 4 sides, you do want to take piece M and fold it inward and top stitch on top. Now, if this piece gets a little thick, especially up here in the zipper and down here in the bottom, if this piece gets too thick for you, just leave it folded out and top stitch it. It's not going to affect the front pocket too much. Mainly having this piece top stitch going forward or going inward is just so that when we add piece in, it's just going to fold inwards so that our gusset will come out like this. But again, if it's too thick up here, just take and top stitch with it laying flat. It's really not going to affect it that much. However, when you are top stitching it, if you're choosing to leave this piece going inward, piece M going inward, make sure that you're not top stitching across the top. So when you get here to the corner, just take piece M and move it out of the way so that you can top stitch the top. After you top stitch the top, you'll want to grab piece H, and you should have 2 of these, 2 exterior and 2 interior pieces, and they should be mirrored of each other. Now, they are very subtle, but your smaller part is going to be your top, your larger part is going to be the bottom, but the main part that I want you to focus on is your zipper side. That's going to be your Okay, so we should now have the outside of our piece R sewn. You should have piece H top stitched on all 4 sides. This is what it looks like from the back side. Now, with this piece R, if you wanted to put a slip pocket on this piece, you could just, again, be aware of the thickness that's going to be included in this side part here. But you could maybe add, or maybe even some pin slots, some elastic bands to hold some pins would be kind of cute. So now what we need to do is pull back out piece N. And if you remember, the larger part of piece N is going to be your top. So take one of your piece ends, and with your piece R piece laying long ways, so this is my top up here, you're going to take and fold back piece M, and we're going to attach piece N to piece M with the side that's been sewn. So go ahead and clip those in place. Okay, so just like this. So this is the inside of piece M, and you can see piece N is attached to the outside of it. So now you're going to top stitch this at 1/8 of an inch, back stitch well at the top and the bottom. After you do that, you're going to take the raw edge of piece N, clip it to piece H, and this isn't a centered. You need to match up your top edges here. So piece H, and then you're going to baste that in place. So first you'll top stitch piece M to piece N on both sides, and then baste stitch piece N to piece H. Okay, so now we should have piece R with piece H, our zippers, our zipper pulls. We should have piece N sewn to piece M, so you can see where that sandwich is kind of in between there, in between those two. And then base stitched to piece H. And so when you open up your zippers, this is kind of what it's going to look like, which is kind of cool. So you could see here, even though I didn't top stitch piece M down, it's still going to work. It's still going to be okay. So when you pull it out, it's still going to be fine. Which is why I say if that one part is too thick for you to top stitch, with piece M being folded, you know, back out of the way like this, then don't do it. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, so go ahead and set this piece off to the side. And we want to pull out piece J. J is our flap. You want to mark your center on the top and on the bottom. This is a great spot to add any type of label that you may have, is right here on the flap. You'll also need to go ahead and install your female portion of your magnetic snap. Now, if you're doing a tongue lock or if you're doing a turn lock, you would want to have your turn lock installed as well. But if you're doing a tongue lock, you would actually install that tongue lock after we sew this piece together. So with piece J, we're going to line up our centers. I'm just going to put 2 clips in here for right now. But you would clip all the way around, and then you're going to sew this at 3/8 inch, starting at the top all the way around and back up to the other side. Now, one other way that you could sew this piece is by starting here in this little corner here, sewing all the way down around and stopping in this other little corner. That just gives you a wider opening to be able to turn this right side out. I find that if you sew the whole thing, you're still going to be able to turn it out. It's a little bit more difficult because it's a smaller hole, but it's still perfectly capable of doing that. The only difference is that when you go to turn this, if you sew from corner to corner, this part here, you'll end up having to turn to the wrong side. It's still going to be turned to the wrong side. So I just sew the entire thing at 3/8 inch seam allowance. You'll clip your curves so that when you turn it, you'll have a nice smooth curve. So set this to the side for a moment. You want to pull back out that small coin pocket for the front piece here and your card slot piece. Go ahead and find the center of your entire card slot piece on top and bottom. Looks like I had already done my top, but let me do my bottom. Okay, so let's see my center mark there. We're going to take and lay our card slot, the top of our card slot, to the straight edge of our coin pocket. Okay, centered. And then we're going to sew across this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Pull this out. Have your seam allowance facing downward. So your seam will be going this way. And then top stitch across your card slots. And then after you sew your flat piece, you'll also turn this right side out and top stitch the entire flat piece as well. Okay, so now we should have our front flap sewn, turned right side out, and top stitched. And of course I base stitched across the top of my flap as well. You should also have your front coin pocket attached to your credit card slots. So again, we sewed that 3/8 inch and then turned it to where our seam allowance is pointed down and top stitched, and you can see where I kept that coin pocket out of the way. Okay, so set your flap to the side for a moment. You do need to go ahead and pull out piece F, but we only need one of these for the moment. Go ahead and find your centers if you haven't done so. Set this to the side for just a second. grab your front pocket, piece R with piece H with those gussets, and we'll want to line up the bottom of piece R centered. And we're going to base stitch all 3 sides in place. After you base stitch that in place, you're going to take piece F, put it right sides together with your pocket, centered, sew across here at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it down to where your seam allowance is pointed downward, and top stitch. Okay, so we should now have our front basted in place, piece F sewn to the front part, turned out to where your seam allowance is pointed down, and top stitched. So you can kind of take a look at how that is going to look. She is coming out so cute. Her card slots in there. So the last part that we want to do with this front piece is we want to baste our flap in place. So just go ahead and pin that on there and then just baste across the top of that. So now we want to pull out 3 of our tab connectors. Now I'm using 2 that are 1.5 inch wide and 1 that is 1 inch wide because I'm going to use a 1 inch square ring at the top of my bag on the back. So one of mine is going to be 1 inches, but what you're going to do is you're going to fold those into the center line, top stitch on either side. You're going to put your D-ring on 2 of these and sew them in place at the top, and then also as close to the connector as you can get for 2 of those. Okay, so we should now have our front part of our bag completed with our flap basted in place. She is very cute indeed. I do love her. Go ahead and set this piece off to the side for now though. You should also have your 2 D-ring connectors and your square ring sewn to your connector pieces. Set those to the side for the moment. Go ahead and pull out a zipper pull, your 9-inch zipper, and your last zipper pocket. I went ahead and found the centers on my zipper pocket. We're going to add our zipper to one side of our zipper pocket. And go ahead and baste that in place. Okay, so just like that. Pull out pieces D, E, F, and G. All of this is going to create our back zipper pocket. So go ahead and pull out piece D. Take note that the curve is going to be at the top of your bag. Go ahead and find your centers just along the long side edge. You don't need to find the center at the top just yet. So just on the sides. This top, we don't want to find the center of this panel just yet because after we add our zipper and piece E, it's going to be longer. And so the center will change on the top and the bottom. Go ahead and take piece D and you want to line wrong side of piece D to, right side of piece D to right side of zipper and centered. Now, if you already have your zipper pull on, you'll want to make sure that the top part of piece D is going to be where your zipper is going to close. So we don't want our zipper to close to the bottom, we want it to close to the top. Now if you're using zipper by the yard, you'll just know that you'll add this to the bottom going up. So add panel D to the zipper. And then we're going to sew this We're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch. I wanted to make sure it was a 1/4 inch and not 3/8 inch. 3/8 inch. So we're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch. We're going to turn this out and then top stitch piece D. Okay, so we should have piece D attached to our zipper with our zipper pocket on the back. So you should have something that looks like this, where your zipper pocket is still pretty long. So now we want to take and add piece E. Go ahead and find the center on your long straight edge. And we want to add piece E, right side of piece E to right side of zipper. And then we also want to take and pull up our zipper pocket up to our zipper and attach that to our zipper as well. So just like this. So our zipper should be sandwiched in between the zipper pocket and piece E. After you sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you'll turn piece E only over and top stitch piece E down to the zipper. Okay, so we should now have piece E attached to the other side of our zipper. And you can see that top stitched on the back with our zipper going away. I did go ahead and base stitch the bottom and the top just to hold my zipper pocket in place. Now you'll notice that my zipper pocket is much shorter than what the pattern calls for. I did 12 inches long, or 12.5 inches long, rather than the 16 inches, because I feel like it's a little bit of a waste to do a full 16 inches, just to have to cut it in half and do some additional things. So I cut mine a little bit shorter at 12.5 inches instead. So now what we want to do is we want to pull back out our square ring and our 2 D-rings. We want to go ahead and find the center. We can now find the center of D and E with our zipper pocket. Go ahead and find on the top and the bottom. We want to take our our square ring. The reason why I use a 1-inch ring is so that when my 3/4 inch lobster claw goes through, it'll fit through here without any problems. So take your 1-inch square ring, add it centered to the top part of your bag. Add your D-rings 1 inch in from either side. Okay, so just like this. So you'll have your square ring at the top, your 2 D-rings at the bottom. I also forgot to mention to make sure you put your zipper pull on, and you want it to close going up. Once you base these pieces in place, you're going to grab piece F. You're going to lay piece F right sides together with your back panel. Sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Turn this down. Top stitch it at 1/8 of an inch. Then you'll grab piece G, add it to the top part of the bag, centered. Sew it at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it out and top stitch it. Now one thing that you'll notice with piece G is that you're going to have some overhang here. You should have an overhang of about 3/8 to 1/2 inch overhang. That's perfectly normal. Once we turn this, a lot of that will be gone because of how it gets turned. So go ahead and do that and we'll take a look at her. Okay, so the back portion of our bag should be complete. So you should have piece F sewn on there and top stitched, along with piece G sewn on and top stitched. If you have any little tabs over here on the side, you'll just want to trim them along the curve. And same thing down here at the bottom. Just trim those little tags off along the curve. Go ahead and set your back piece to the side for now. You want to next pull out your grab handle. You should have 2 different pieces, one piece that's longer than the other. Your short piece should be 9 inches. Your long piece should be 17 inches, but I cut mine at 15 inches because I like a nice smooth handle rather than a larger handle. So first we're going to want to find the centers of both of our handles. and then attach those to each other at the center mark. Okay, so just like this. So now we want to mark a 1/2 inch from our short end on either side. So a 1/2 inch from either side. So you can see that mark there, 1/2 inch. So now we're going to start at the 1/2 inch that we made here. So all the way across the bottom, pull long tails. Same thing on this side, 1/2 inch here, all the way across to the other side, and pull long tails. Don't sew across. Okay, we'll be doing that here in a little bit, but don't sew across, just sew on your long sides. So let's set that to the side for a moment so I can show you what we're going to do in the next step. Go ahead and pull out panel B and panel C. Now I like to add my zipper to my exterior pieces before I sew my handle on. To me, I've just found it to be a lot easier. It doesn't get in the way when I'm trying to put on panel C. So let's pull out panel B, our exterior piece. And you should have found your centers already. If you haven't, you'll want to do that. We want just the exterior pieces for the moment. On your pattern pieces, you'll notice that the top edge here has a slight curve. It's not a real big curve, it's just enough. So on the back of your pieces, you'll want to mark the side that's straight and the side that's curved on your lining pieces as well as on your exterior pieces. The straight side is going to be for your zipper. The curved side is going to be for the front and back of the bag. So on the side with the straight, you're going to take your zipper, right side of zipper to right side of exterior, clip that in place, and you're going to have some overhang with your zipper. Just leave it for now. And then you'll want to take your lining part of piece B, and same thing, find the side that's the S for straight, line it up centered, sew this together at a 1/4 inch, turn them to where they're wrong sides together, and then top stitch. And then you're going to do the same thing with the other side of the zipper for piece C. So you'll add the straight side of the zipper, or of the panel, to the straight side of the zipper, clip it in place. Again, wrong side of panel to right side of zipper, sew it at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, turn it wrong sides together, and top stitch. Okay, so we should now have our handle top stitched, and we should now have piece B and C added to our exterior zipper, or our top zipper. So we need to next add this handle to our piece B. So just take and fold the lining piece out of the way, because we don't want to sew through the lining. And then there are some marks that we need to make on our handle. We need to mark for rivets, and then we need to mark for sew lines. So the first mark that we're going to make is for rivets, here by these black dots. So your first one is going to be 1 inch, and then from this dot to the next one, 1 1/4 inches, and then from this one to the third dot is going to be 1 1/2 inches. And you'll do that on both sides of your grab handle. The next lines that we need to make are here in white. So the first line that we're going to make is 1 1/4. From that line to the next line is going to be 3/4. And then from that line to our third line down here is going to be 2 inches. So we're going to add our grab handle to pattern piece B. we need to measure in 7/8 of an inch. Now, if like me, you've already sewn your panel together, you're going to measure in 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to add that grab handle right at that mark. And then what I like to do is pin it to the other side, just so I know that everything is going to stay nice and straight, so it doesn't get crooked on me. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to sew from the top down to the first line, across and back up. We're going to feed on one D-ring and place it in between our first line and our second line. And then we're going to sew from our third line, we're going to sew up, across our second line, back down, pull long threads, and tie everything to the back. And you'll do the same thing for the other side. So you'll line up your raw edges with that mark and do the same stitching. Don't forget to add your D-ring to this side here as well. Okay, so now we should be done with the top part of our bag. You should have your handle attached to piece B, and I went ahead and added my rivets and base stitched around the outside. I don't trim my zippers yet until I add the exterior panel A, because I want a little bit of stability on these zippers. So I'll end up trimming this zipper down after I attach exterior piece A. So hold on to this, but set it to the side for a second. You do need to pull out piece A, which is your exterior and interior bottom gusset panel. You do need to go ahead and mark your centers on both your exterior and your interior. Set your interior to the side for a moment. Take your exterior piece A and add it to the completed front zipper portion that you've completed here. Line up your edges on your short side. For now, just tack this in place at first, and then you can trim that zipper off and cinch it back down if you need to. And then we're going to take piece A interior, add it to the inside, and we're going to sew across here at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Turn both of our pieces wrong sides together and top stitch and baste the whole outside. You'll do that to both sides. So attach both sides, sew at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it wrong side, top stitch it, and then baste the entire outside. Okay, so now we should have our gusset completed at this point, added and top stitched on the inside, and then basted all the way around. So go ahead and set your gusset off to the side for a moment. Go ahead and pull out piece E, which is your lining slip pocket. Now you have two different options on how you can do this slip pocket. You can either put them wrong sides together, baste the entire outside edge, and then add a slip pocket trim across the top. Or if you don't want to do a trim, you can add your pockets right sides together, sew across the top at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it around wrong side, top stitch across the top, and then sew down the center. But we'll get to the sewing down the center part. Even though I cut a slip pocket trim for this, I have decided that I'm not going to use this trim. And so I'm just going to put my pockets right sides together and sew across the top at 3/8 inch seam allowance. That was just a last minute design choice. So I'm going to sew across my top here at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it right sides or wrong sides together, top stitch across the top, and then base stitch the entire outside. Okay, so we should now have our slip pocket sewn together and top stitch, whether you chose to do it like I did with no slip pocket trim, or if you chose to put a slip pocket trim on there. But that should be complete. Go ahead and pull out one of your lining pieces. Set the other one to the side for a moment. You're going to first find the center of this pocket. Now I like to do a couple of different lines of sewing, so I'm going to mark my center, and I'm just using a heat erase pen that if I need to take away later I can. And then I like to mark 1/8 of an inch from that line to the right, and 1/8 of an inch to the left. This just gives your slip pocket a little bit more stability so that the stitching doesn't come undone later. Okay, so just like this. So I always do 3 lines of stitching, so I do a center and then to the 1/8 of an inch to either side. So go ahead and grab your lining panel, line this up centered. So we're going to base stitch down the side across the bottom. We're going to come up our first line, rotate it all the way around, go back down our first line, stitch over to our middle line, go up, rotate it, come back down, go over to our third line, go up, rotate it, come back down, and then base stitch the rest of the way. Okay, so we should now have our slip pocket attached to our lining panel. And you can see those 3 lines of stitching that I do and how I come up, rotate it, and sew back down on each one of those. And that's just so that we don't have a bunch of threads that we end up having to cut at the end. So we just do it all in one fell swoop. Okay, so go ahead and pull out your other lining panel. And we want to pull out both of our exterior pieces, front and back. Take your front panel and attach your lining, wrong side of lining to wrong side of front panel. I choose to do the plain side against my front panel because there's a lot going on here on this, and to have another pocket attached to this, or even a slip pocket, would make this very bulky in the front once you start putting stuff in it. Now, if you wanted to, you could add an additional zipper pocket back here, or maybe some elastic to hold some pens in, or anything like that. It's kind of a blank slate, so you can do what you would like with this one. But we're going to leave it the way that it is, the way the pattern calls for. We're going to line up our centers, and we're going to clip all the way around and base stitch both the lining and the exterior panel together. And then we're going to do the same thing with the back side and the lining panel. So again, we're going to center everything up, and we're going to base stitch this in place. Okay, so we should now have our exterior and our lining basted together. If you have any overhang like I do here, you'll want to make sure to trim all of this nice and even. It'll make adding the gusset a lot easier, and it'll make when you go to do your binding at the end far easier if all of that is trimmed down nice, straight, and even. So we're going to add our exterior pieces to our gusset piece. It doesn't matter whether you start with the front or the back. That's totally up to you. Personally, I like to start with my front because I want to make sure that while I'm sewing this, I can pull my flap out of the way. These zipper pieces here don't get caught. And so because I can look down inside of my gusset and see where all of this is at, I prefer to do my front first. But it doesn't matter. You can do the front or the back first. So go ahead and grab one of your exterior panel pieces. You'll want to locate your center markings. So because I'm doing the front, I want to make sure that I'm adding my panel to the narrow part of my gusset. So go ahead and unzip your zippers. Turn this wrong side out. And if you kind of set your gusset panel here on your sewing machine, match up your front center mark. We don't have quarter markings on this particular bag, but if you match up your center marks first, what I like to do is I like to clip all along my straight edge first, And then after I clip across the straight edge here as far as I can go, I'll then come up here to the top and start easing all of this panel into my lining, or into my front panel piece. Once I get down here to the curves, this is a very tight fitting gusset. You will have to clip into your gusset about 1/8 of an inch to get it to fit this curve. It's just the way the bag is made. You do have to clip into your gusset in order to get it to fit. So we are going to clip this entire piece to our gusset. I do recommend stitching at 1/8 of an inch first, and then going in and stitching at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we should now have our front panel attached to our gusset. I did have a very, very thick spot right in here where the gusset meets up with that piece H. So I had to take a pair of seam clampers and really, really press that good and flat because it was very thick there. So be careful when you're going over that spot. Go really slow, one stitch at a time. You may need to back stitch to catch the stitches because it was very thick there. Okay, so now that we've done our front, now we are going to add our back in the same manner that we did our front. Again, lining up those center parts on the top and the bottom, easing your top around on both sides, and then clipping here into the gusset for your rounded part. And you'll see here where I did have to clip my gusset in order to make it fit, because it is a very tight fitting gusset, so you'll have to do that. So go ahead and add your back panel, and then we'll be ready to do our binding. Okay, so we should now have our back part of our bag attached to our gusset, stitched all the way around. So the only thing that's left to do for this bag is to attach our binding to our raw edge. So a little note about binding: how you know what size binding to use. You want to go 2.5 times the width of your seam allowance. So for example, this is a 3/8 inch seam allowance, so we would want to use 1 inch binding. I personally like to use this binding here from sailrite.com. Preferably the 1 inch. This is 3/4 inch, but they do have 1 inch binding. You can also use gross grain ribbon. You can use satin ribbon. I've seen where people use fold over elastic. That one I don't quite understand, but I have seen where people use that. I could if I wanted to, because this canvas is I don't have to worry about it fraying. I could use some of the canvas from this interior part. You can use waterproof canvas. You can use Olifun. Really, you just want to use anything that's non-fraying. I don't recommend using vinyl, because vinyl is thick and it'll cause, when you go to turn this right side out, it'll be very bulky in your seams at that point. We want it to be nice and thin. So the last thing to do, add your binding, whatever type of binding you use, to your bag, turn it right side out, and admire it. So one other part that we need to do is we need to create our long strap. Now I'm not going to show this on the video because it's really no different than how we created our connectors. So you'll make a center mark, fold this into the center, okay? And I do this in 2 pieces. So in 2 separate pieces, rather than having this 4 times the width that it needs to be, I do 2 times the width, fold it to the center, and then add those 2 straps together and top stitch. But there's lots of different ways that you can do strapping if you're going to make your strapping for a bag. So I'm not going to do that on this video, but that would be the last thing for you to do, is to create your long strap, do your binding, and turn it right side out, and just take a look at her. Okay. So we got done with our Amahle convertible bag, and she came out so stinking cute. Get a little bit closer for you. Very cute. I love this pattern for this vinyl. I got this from a friend of mine, Miss Heather Lynn. I'm not entirely sure where she got it from, but I do love this. I think it was called Princess something, but it was very cute. So I liked it. I purchased that from her. My zippers here, those come from Wall Whack. And my zipper tape, I don't know, I source from a couple of different people when it comes to zipper tape. As you can see there on the inside, we have our 2 slip pockets here on the back. Of course, on the front, and you can see by not top stitching piece M down, it really does not affect this front at all. So if you were worried about how that's going to look, really does not make a difference whether you top stitch those back or you don't. Very cute. I love the way that she came out. I'm very happy with this one. I have not made my long strap yet to go with it because I ran out of pink thread. So the strap will get made later and she'll get put up on the website, but she is very cute and I'm very, very happy with her. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give it a big old thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and ring that bell so that you can get all the notifications as they get posted. Thanks so much, and as always, live a paradise life.